Greetings, metalheads, and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George, and I'm back yet again with another collection update. This time, I've got 8 recent vinyl additions to the collection. To be honest, this is a bit of a random batch, but I've been spending a lot of time and, yes, of course, money trying to fill in some gaps in the ever-growing collection. I'm a bit of a completionist. I like to have all the albums by my favourite bands or the bands that I particularly enjoy. You know, there's always those elusive albums that you just can't quite find a reasonably priced copy of. But I have spent quite a lot of effort and input, you could say, in trying to fill in those missing pieces. But also, I've been exploring some bands that I have kind of a little bit more, anyway, delving a little bit deeper into bands I've kind of dabbled with over the years and never really committed to. And in fact, that is exactly the case with the first band, which I've actually been on a little bit of a bender with recently. And that would be Californian death grind dealers, masters of gore metal, Exhumed. So this mighty band I've only really been a casual listener of over the years. Really, I've only ever kind of gotten into the debut album, but in the necrospective format, the 2 CD version that they released however many years ago it was now, to mark the 20th anniversary, I think it was, of Gore Metal, the debut album. So I don't know what has happened to that copy. It must be somewhere lost in the abyss of my collection. But I recently stumbled upon this vinyl format. So we've got a little sticker on the back here. And this was picked up from Amazon. And it was about £14. So I couldn't really ignore it. But it's the 25th anniversary deluxe edition of Gore Metal. The Gore Metal pioneering album, and it's a fantastically disgusting album at that, on slime green vinyl. Cleverly, it does have like a censorship cover, if you like, to mask the absolutely grotesque album artwork. Look at that. That is just gore adorning awesome. Absolutely repulsive. Not really all about the artwork, of course, but that does perfectly represent what you get here. This is death metal, of course. It is definitely sort of gore grind at that, but it is absolute maximum carcass worship. You know, think reek of putrefaction through necroticism. Maximum worship there. And this is a really nice vinyl package, actually. So you've got a cool kind of glossy effect on the front cover there. You've got this nice big fold out insert as well. And the real highlight here has to be the brilliant colour of this vinyl. This really is fantastic. Slime green. It's almost luminous. Now that the sun has actually finally come out, I can actually see it in its full bright green slimy glory. A cracking album. This is a really brilliant album. I've loved revisiting this. I've listened to it a number of times in recent weeks. It's such a great album. It is blistering. You know, it's all full throttle. There's no doomy passages here. No chance of that. It's all full throttle, gory death metal. Some brilliant tracks that are really quite notable, and it really does work. You know, we've even got like catchy, memorable choruses in amongst that putrid death metal. Tracks like Open the Abscess, Limb from Limb, Casket Crusher. We've got Sepulchral Slaughter, Blazing Corpse. This is a really solid album. If you like putrid, gore, horror-inspired death metal, then Gore Metal is an album you must check out. So this was the debut. It's a cracking album. Absolutely love that. now, kind of leaping forward quite a few years. This is, if I get them in the right order, chronologically anyway, this is 2011. This is All Guts, No Glory, so we are sticking with Exhumed for this. This is Swamp Green with Splatter Edition, limited to 1,500 copies, I should say. These are all Relapse Records reissues, and to be fair, Relapse do a good job with their reissues. They've got a number of really nice articles out, bands like Revocation, we've got some good stuff from there, and obviously them Death. They've done some good stuff in recent years, Dying Fetus, so on and so forth. So this album, this is a little bit more, still Carcass Worship, still Full Throttle. There's a little bit more melodicism in there. Maybe a little bit more old school death metal thrown into the mix as well. Less kind of gore grind. But it's still a really cool package to have. So you've got a nice big insert. Can't quite remember how much this was, but it must have been about £15. So all of these I've picked up when they've randomly dropped in price on Amazon, because although I want to have the full Exhumed discography on vinyl, I'm not going to shell out £23 a piece. I'll wait, I'll bide my time and be patient. So that's a rather nice one. Swamp Green with Splatter. Very cool. And as I say, this is a good album. I'm getting a little bit more familiar with it. It's got some great tracks in the form of All Guts, No Glory, As Hammer to Anvil's great, Your Funeral, My Feast. We've got I Rot Within, Disassembly Line, Necrotized. It's a good album. There's some good tracks in here. And actually, probably should have mentioned when talking about gore metal, we've got frontman, guitarist, vocalist Matt Harvey here depicted, I should say, as a zombie. It's all very good. It's a very gory package, this. Great vocalist. Great all-round metal personality. Matt is in or has been associated with a lot of other great bands like Gruesome, that fantastic death worshipping band. I've also got Expulsion alongside Repulsion members, and of course Pounder, which is a fairly recent discovery of mine, which I've picked up some tape copies of their albums. But a good album. This All Guts No Glory is a good album. I believe that this was the sort of comeback album, if you like, after a bit of a hiatus, if I'm remembering that correct. So All Guts No Glory, great one there. Fast forward a few more years, what do we got? 2013, this is Necrocracy. So this one I was very chuffed to find, because actually this is a really good album. Again, I would say it's a little bit more melodic. It might be sacrilege to say, but it kind of at times reminds me of the Black Dahlia Murder, in that kind of modern melodic death metal with a little bit of a old school flair to it and vibe. I like the Black Dahlia, so that's not a bad thing. It's not a criticism, it's a compliment. And then we've got Necrocracy on Blood Red with Splatter. Again, 1,500 copies. I really like this album, and I may have had a copy on CD years ago, but I seem to remember reviewing this album when it came out on the No Nonsense Metal Reviews blog many moons ago, and I remember really quite enjoying this album, and revisiting it has been a pleasure because we've got some great tracks here. Just show off this rather pleasant colour scheme, and this is a good one. This is what I mean about these Relapse reissues. They do splatter vinyl and they do it well. Not like some of the, maybe I won't give names, but well, maybe I will. Some of the Back on Black Records reissues, some of them have been great, but some of them have been just like clear with like one or two little streaks of red or white on it, and I've kind of felt a bit shortchanged, but I don't in any way feel shortchanged by that. It could be heavier, it could be even more splattered, but I'm happy with this. I'm happy. It's a nice piece, plays fine. So, choice tracks then. Coins Upon the Eyes is a great opening track. The title track is brilliant, as is Dysmorphic, Ravening, and The Carrion Call. It's all good, actually. I like the rather Soviet-looking aesthetics there as well. You know, it looks a little bit, yeah, post-apocalyptic. It's cool. It's a good album. This is a really good album. I like this one. I wouldn't say it's my favourite out of these four, but I would say that it's certainly a top-notch album. So we've got Necrocracy as well. Exhumed, keeping it deadly. But none more deadly than Death Revenge. So this one is a custom quad with Splatter Edition. Maybe this isn't one of the reissue series, but this is a 2017 full length. Now this is actually quite an epic album. It's a much longer album, and there's quite a number of kind of interlude pieces and little breakups between songs that it kind of works. It's like a little horror movie epic, if you like, and I think it is exploring grave robbing in the 1800s, if I remember correctly. So Death Revenge, this is a good album. I'm not entirely 100% familiar with it, still building that familiarity, but it is a good album. We've got some good tracks like Defenders of the Grave, Lifeless, Dead End, Night Work, I believe is an intro-y sort of piece. So, you know, we've got some decent stuff there, and it's a cool colour scheme. Got like a half and half, kind of bluey, and then a bit kind of smoky effect with some splatter. You know, it's cool. It's cool. I like it, and it's a good sturdy bit of vinyl. Like it a lot. This is a good album. I'd say it's gore, death gore. You know, old school death metal vibes in there, but I'd say it's quite a sophisticated piece. Actually, it's a bit of an epic. You know, it's going to take me a few more listens to really get to grips with it, but I like it. I think it's a good album. I think that Exhumed haven't just kind of stuck with absolutely raw and abrasive gore metal. They've kind of taken that and mixed it with old school death metal, bit of melodic death metal, bit of more modern sounds and styles, and actually it's really worked. So in a lot of ways, from that Maximum Carcass Worship, they've kind of followed that blueprint, and they've incorporated what they were doing initially, grinding death metal, and mixed it with other different styles and flavors. Oh, it's all good. It's all good. You know, expression and creativity, that's what we like. Do the same album time and again, and people will lose interest. And what's really cool about this is this massive Death Revenge poster. You probably can't even see it all. Huge. That's awesome. I'd love to have that on the wall, but it'd probably scare the family. So might avoid, but Death Revenge. Yeah, very cool. I like this a lot. I would certainly recommend it to anyone that fancies a bit of Exhumed gory death metal. So that's all we've got for Exhumed. Great band, 100% recommend if you're not familiar with Exhumed. They are from California and they play very well. So moving on and moving away from outright death metal and death grind, probably going to be accused of treason for this one by some, but recently stumbled upon this, and it's quite an interesting article. This is from Thy Art Is Murder, Australian deathcore band, gone from deathcore to, I guess, being more death metal in nature over the years, but I've always really liked Thy Art Is Murder. I've been following them for many years. There's been a few times over the years where I've kind of dipped out, but when I was younger, I used to listen to a lot more deathcore. I don't follow that much deathcore these days, if I'm honest, to be perfectly honest. Still follow my favourite deathcore band, which would be Whitechapel. Love Whitechapel. You know, I love Suicide Silence. I also love Thy Art Is Murder and Carnifex, and there's a few other bands, no doubt, but this album is the Decade of Hate live in Melbourne 2023. Essentially, it's the 10th anniversary live album performing their debut album, or is it the second album? I think it might have been the second album, Hate in full. And I found this on Amazon for a bargain, and I couldn't help but be quite intrigued by it, because deathcore and live albums isn't something that comes up all that often, especially not a cool, what is this, purple with blue and pink splatter vinyl, limited to 900 copies. Also got a copy of this for my best friend for his birthday, because we're old school Violators Murder fans. And it's a nice package. Obviously, this was before the departure of CJ, kicked out, I believe, for having a bit of a interesting opinion on things. I don't really know the ins and outs of that, if I'm honest, so I will plead ignorant. But this is a nice splatter vinyl. That is very bright. Offensively bright, in fact. And you know what? This is a good, fun live album. It sounds really good. I was sceptical because, as I say, deathcore live album doesn't necessarily go hand in hand, in my opinion. You know, the brutality of those breakdowns often works a little bit better when you've got good headphones or, you know, good speakers or what have you. But actually, this does really work, and it breathes some seriously intense life into tracks like Reign of Darkness, Vile Creation, Immolation, and even the sort of outside of High Hate, I should say, tracks like Holy War. They sound beastly, absolutely beastly. So if you were maybe curious about Violators Murder and hadn't quite got over the deathcore tag, I'd recommend just checking out Holy War and Hate. Those are brilliant albums. They are insanely heavy. CJ was and is, I don't know if he's still active in the music scene, fantastic vocalist, like really good. His gutturals are monstrous. And on this live album, his inter-crowd banter is hilarious. It is very entertaining, shall we say. Lots of profanity, which we can all get on board with and enjoy, I'm sure. This is 4 sides of pretty savage, intense breakdowns. If you're a fan of deathcore, then I would certainly recommend it. If you're a fan of Violators Murder, you won't be disappointed. And actually, if you're just curious and just fancy checking something out that might be a bit different outside your comfort zone, hey, this is a good place to start. Violators Murder, Decade of Hate. Now, stepping away from death metal altogether and moving into a completely different direction, but keeping things heavy, I will say, we are going thrash. Obviously, I've got to squeeze in some thrash metal somewhere, and we've got a bit of a random impulse purchase, if you like. This is the Bay Area Legends Exodus with Exhibit B, The Human Condition. Can't quite recall the original year of release off the top of my head, and it's probably not going to be all that easy to find. Nope, can't see any mention of years there. Apologies. But this is a 2024 vinyl reissue, which wasn't something that I was necessarily looking for. I love Exodus, and actually, I've forgotten how good this album is. But I found this for pre-order on Amazon for $14.99, and given that I guess they're doing a whole lot of vinyl represses and reissues of stuff, this was a really good price. A lot of them are £30+. So I thought, you know what? I quite fancy that, especially when I saw the rather nice colour scheme. So it's a double vinyl, of course, if you're aware of this album and you know the duration, which we'll get onto in a second. But it's a really nice gold vinyl. It's the kind of same colour scheme, gold, nice gold, as the rather excellent live album, The British Disaster. I believe that's what it's called. Live at the Astoria. Really nice. And that's a nice package as well. But this, I had forgotten how good this album is. So it is a bit of an impulse buy. But it's a brilliant album. The one problem with this album, and really it is the only problem I've got with it, is that it's way too long. It's 4 sides of vinyl, but I'm surprised it's not more. It's about an hour and 20 minutes long. There is a bonus track. That said, it's still a fantastic album. And actually, it's even more remarkable that it is such a brilliant album when it's that long. It doesn't feel that long. It doesn't sound that long, if you know what I mean. Some albums, you put it on, it feels like it goes on forever, but it's actually only 50 minutes. This, well over that, doesn't tire at all. Doesn't get boring. So Exhibit B, the Human Condition. This is an interesting album. Of course, it features Rob Dukes on vocals, who I was not anticipating. I'm sure many Exodus fans, metalheads, were not expecting Rob to now be back in the band. I like Rob. I think he's a good vocalist, good frontman. I do kind of prefer Steve's vocals. I will admit, if I'm being totally honest and objective, I think I do prefer Steve's vocals. I'm very surprised that he's no longer in the band, but this is a really good album. It's certainly riffing. Let's show our lineup there. Of course, we've got Gary the Beast Holt on guitars. That guy is such a riff maniac. He is an absolute freaking legend. Then we've got Lee Altus on guitars as well, absolutely riffing for days. Tom Hunting on drums, legend, and Jack Gibson on bass. This is a really strong album. Choice tracks then, opening track, The Ballad of Leonard and Charles, into Beyond the Pale. Brilliant way to kick off the album. Riffs, thrashing stuff. It's not blinding, old school Metal Command Exodus, not quite. But it is riffing and it is thrashing. Hammer and Life, brilliant as I say. Class Dismissed, a hate primer, is a great number. You know, Exodus have never shied away from tough lyrical themes. And that is evident with tracks like March of the Sycophants and the absolutely disgusting Nankin King. I'm not quite sure on the pronunciation, as in the place event. If you want to hear something with lyrics that will make you sick, then that's one to go for. Burn Hollywood Burns, great. Democide, brilliant. The Sun Is My Destroyer is about 10 minutes long. Other than the length, this is a great album. Absolutely fantastic. I'm chuffed to have it. I do have it on CD, so it really was a bit of an impulse. I think it was probably a beer-fueled impulse. But yeah, Exodus. You can't go wrong with a bit of Exodus, to be honest. There's no bad Exodus albums. They just deliver the goods freaking time and again. So yes, chuffed to have picked that one up. And then we've got one more article, which is moving away from, I guess, very heavy end of the spectrum altogether. But we're going with an album that I've been trying to get hold of for a long time. CD format has been out of print for decades and it's really extortionate. And the vinyl version, when it was reissued, was also extortionate. But one of my favourite German bands is Gravedigger. And this is I believe it's the third album, War Games. Now, this album was released in 1986, and in my opinion, it sounds fantastic. It sounds quite almost ahead of its time. You know, Gravedigger are one of those bands that, although they aren't exactly, you know, they're not Maiden, they're not Saxon, they're not Judas Priest, but they are a brilliant band. They are a criminally underrated heavy metal band that have dabbled with power metal and thrash metal, or speed metal, I should say. And actually, War Games is a superb album. So I found this on Amazon for about £18, I think it was in the end. And I had to pick it up because it was near 40 when this came out. And there's a great lineup shot there on the back. This is a double mint vinyl, which I'm not quite sure how we can tell if it's double mint or not. But let's show it off anyway. I guess it kind of reminds me of an Aero. Double mint. If ever you were wondering what double mint looks like, hopefully the glare isn't too bad. But yes, a nice vinyl piece there. You know, it's not an amazing album cover, but we do have our inserts. We've got lyrics and pictures. Not an amazing album cover, but we do get a rather nice large poster. Very cool. Very cool. Yep, modest. But it's a fantastic album. So we obviously had the debut album, Heavy Metal Breakdown. Then we got Witch Hunter. Good album, underrated in my opinion. But this album is great. Kicks off with Keep On Rockin', which is an anthemic, little bit kind of Def Leppard, you know, Tigers of Pantang. Got a bit of a kind of new album vibe there. Then we've got Heaven Can Wait, which is a speedy track. Fire in Your Eyes is brilliant. Let Your Heads Roll, which is a bit of a Priest vibe. Great twin guitars there. Love Is Breaking My Heart, ballad. Even that's a decent ballad. Paradise and Enola Gay, brilliant tracks. You know, some incredible crunchy riffs there and some good vocal work throughout from great Chris Boltondahl. Fallout is a brilliant album highlight. Playing Fools is great, as is the outro, The End. This is a good album, really strong album. If you're not familiar with Gravedigger, give them a chance. They're a freaking great band. They've got tons of albums to choose from. Don't know if you can actually see it, probably not, but I've got all other Gravedigger studio albums except the most recent one, Bone Collector, because I won't pay £20 for a CD. But they are such a brilliant band. So many great albums, so much great material in their discography. Check them out. And definitely check out War Games. This is German speed, kind of heavy metal in excellent style. The Mighty Gravedigger with War Games. So there we have it for my humble collection update. We've got some great choice albums from Exhumed with gore metal, All Guts No Glory, Necrocracy, and Death Revenge. We've got the potentially rather risky Thy Art Is Murder with their live album Decade of Hate. Then we've got the excellent Gravedigger with War Games, and of course Bay Area Kings Exodus with Exhibit B. So my friends, what are your thoughts and opinions on these albums, on these bands? Do let me know. Any choice articles here, any favourites of yours? Let me know, interested to hear of course. But thank you very much for watching and for the continued support. Do feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. Support is very much appreciated. Check back soon for more reviews and recommendations of all the good heavy things. Until next time, take care of yourselves, listen to vinyl, and stay heavy.